So this week we're going to do Daf Lamed Zayin in Shir Hashirim, but we're going to start from Daf Lamed Vav Amud Daled on the top of the page, from the Maimer Shinecha Ke'eder Harachelim, and we will go all the way. We'll do most of the Maimer till Ois Hey, and Ois Hey will finish next week. So today will be a little bit of a longer shir because we'll do almost a Amud and a half longer than a full blot. So again, the daf is Lamed Zayin, but we're starting on Lamed Vav Amud Daled. So the Maimer begins Shinecha Ke'eder Harachelim. So the Maimer is that Shinecha, your teeth are like the flock of sheep that have come up from the wash, which we say Shekulam Masimais. They're all the same. They all look the same. They're all like one. So he says the idea of Eder Harachelim, what is this flock of sheep, is similar to what it says, and based on what it says in the pasuk Ve'ela Mishpatim, that I will plant the Jewish people Zera Adam Zera Behema. This is a pasuk Zera Adam Zera Behema, and this is that the neshamas, the souls of the Jewish people that are from Atzilus and basically come down into this world without any type of evolvement, as they are down here, is the way they were above. These are called the neshamas of man, or Zera Adam. And on the other hand, the seed of man. And then the other one's the neshamas of Bria Tzir Nasiya, which are the ones that have come down and evolved and been affected by the lower three worlds. They are called the Zera Behema. They're called the souls of animals. And same thing also the angels. They're called the level of Behema. As we see, they're called the face of the lion, face of the ox. And on this it says that you shall place, you shall place grass in your field for your animals. What is this idea? So the idea is that Moshe Rabbeinu draws down knowledge, in other words, a connection to Hashem, which is the idea of knowledge, which is connectivity, which is, Moshe is called the Ra'im Mehemna, the faithful shepherd, that he also shepherds faith. So that faith should not only be something that is above and beyond one and peripheral, but rather with something that is within and impactful and your real being. And so this is the idea of Kaddish 3 times that the Jewish people say, and as well as the angels. And they're Mekadosh, the Eibush, they're above and below as one. Which through that we draw down this level of das, of knowledge, that we could become connected with Hashem. And it says in Perek Chaim, Shar Siri, Perek Dal, and say Perek Gimel, and look there also Shar Zayin. And on this it says, Ke'eder halachelim sha'olu min arachza. That's like the flock of sheep that have come up from the wash. Which this is like the example of a shepherd that washes his flock, his sheep. And look what it says about Sheishanim Yavid. So I looked this up in the Maimer and Ve'ela Mishpatim about Sheishanim Yavid. There he speaks more about somebody washing clothing. I didn't see anything about washing sheep. So I don't know exactly what this makar of this mashal is, but the idea is that through tshuva, one could wash off the impurities that happen in this lower world of Bria Tzir Nasiya, and through that you're able to go up as pure and beautiful, etc., and receive and be connected in Atzilus to the Eibishter. So to understand this idea, what does it mean that they come up from the wash, and the idea that Kulam Asimais, they're all equal, they're all the same. So first we'll introduce the idea of the 3 times that we say Kadosh, which that is that the essence of the Emanator, which is may he be blessed, is exalted and high and beyond, and all the entire evolved worlds of Atzilus, Bria, Tzir, and Asiya, they're all considered like nothing before him. And like the example of the one drop of all the oceans or the Mediterranean, in comparison to the entire ocean, it's totally nullified and like nothing. And even more so is the distance between us and the Eibishter himself. It's beyond any type of measurement. And that's where it says that I am Hashem, meaning the Eibishter. I never change. Ani violation that I never change. And you are from before the world was created. You're the one once the world was created, and the worlds do not cause any change. Heaven forbid, when they're created being, that they're considered like nothing before him. And therefore, the sustenance that comes from the Eibishter, from Hashem, to give life to the 10 spheres and all the different worlds is only called a hair. As it says in the Rabbi, that 410 hairs, or strands of hair, as the same numerical value as the word Kadosh. which the 3 and the 300 and 100 and another 4 and 6 is the same 410. And because the meaning of the word Kadosh, holy, also is really from the word of separation. That the Eik Hashem is exalted on his own, himself, and he's not grasped, and he does not really get enclosed within the worlds. Rather, he surrounds them from above. He's Sovev Kolaman, and all equally, and he makes equal, and he equalizes the small and the big. And so that which we do get from him in these worlds is only like the example of some small light that goes in a way of a hole and the empty areas of, in other words, the inside of the hair, that really has no effect on the essence of the being of who has that hair. So, for example, a regular person, the life force that's in his hair really does not affect himself in any way. And therefore, the entire holiness is dependent on a hair, because specifically from the level of Sovev Kolama, which is holy and exalted and removed and separated, from there it is impossible to have any type of sustenance except when it comes through the level of hairs. On the other hand, down here in this world, we have the evolved worlds, which are an emanator to an emanation, or a cause and an effect. And that's where it says by a Nazir, by a Nazirite, that Kadosh Gadol Perasar Roshe, that he should be holy when he grows his hair, that the Nazir, he ascends to a higher level, and then he's more compared. He's compared to something that's more something higher. In other words, higher than Mamala, but the level of Sovev, and therefore there his hairs become holy, and therefore he draws down the sustenance from the hairs of Arachampin, which is the level of Kadosh, which the Chachma comes from Ayin, which means from this level of hairs, and this is what's called Abba Yonik Mazla, that the level of Chachma nourishes from the level of the Mazel, which the Mazel here refers to a level of hair. Which Mazla is one of the 13 attributes of mercy, which we know are connected to the 13 strands of the hair of the beard, and therefore this is connected to the idea of a hair. And look what it says about this in the Pasuk V'Negdash B'nei B'nei Yisrael, and that's what the Rabbi said with regard to Naziris, that Hareini Misalsel. So misalsel is like a playing, like a combing and playing of the hair, beautifying of the hair. And so what does it mean, misalsel? It means that he draws down from the level of hairs of Arachampin, that there should be able to come down from this, the level of Chachma of Atzilus. And that's where it says Kadosh, which Kadosh, holy, is the word Kodesh with a Vav, which is holy with a Vav. Which a Vav shows on the drawing down of the sustenance from the level of the supernal holiness through a way of a hair, which is like a Vav, which it looks and similar to a hair. And the idea of this is why we call the way that the sustenance come down with the name of hairs. And look in the Maimer of Le'ava, and look on the Kodesh means Kan Aaron, about the hair of Aaron, because he says the hairs are they're like a straw. They're empty in the inside, and they nourish from the level of the intellect that's in the head. Yet they have no connection, so to speak, and they're not within the realm of comparison with the brain, with the head. And that is also at the level of the same thing similar we find with the letters of the words of a teacher, which from there comes over intellect to a student. And he has to be able to, he says chule, he says etc., but to bring it down to a student, he has to contract all of his thoughts into one strand of thought, to one idea, that he gives over to the student. He says, yet, but in truth, this example is not comparable to what we're trying to learn, the lesson we're trying to learn here. Because in the lesson, in other words, when we're talking about God, the main source and the main creation of Chachma is because of this sustenance that comes from the hair. In other words, these are the letters that make it, creates it. On the other hand, when we talk about in the example of the words of the teacher to his student, the student, he has his own intellect from before. Only thing is that he's now understanding the intellect of the teacher through it coming through the letters. So the letters are a medium through which he receives it, but the student already has an ability to receive before he received it. On the other hand, Chachma is nothing. It only gets created by these letters, by these hairs. And therefore, the understanding of a student has some type of, it's within the realm and has some type of comparison in comparison to the understanding of the teacher. Because not from the letters of the teacher is he created, and that is from there does it come as essential intellect. Rather, it comes from his own thinking, and without that, he wouldn't understand anything through the speaking of the teacher. Yet, we say that a student doesn't know his real teacher's teachings until 40 years. Why? Because being that it went through these combinations of letters of speech, it takes time to come to it. But above, in the example of the creation of the essential wisdom of Atzilus from the Emanator is only through the sustenance that comes through the letters, which are called hairs, and therefore the Chachma is not with beyond the realm at all from that which is higher than Chachma. Now, it continues in Ois Beis that the sustenance that gets drawn down. So the way the sustenance comes from the Mazalis, which is the constellation, so to speak, of Arachampin, which are the 13 attributes of mercy, to Chachma and Bina, is through that which we first have to bring and ascend and bring up what's called man, which is Mai Nukvin, feminine waters, that ascends from the Birurim, which means from the things that are refined in the worlds of Bria, Yitzir, and Asiyah. That happens, and through this Jesus Lasata, you arouse an arousal from above, which draws down the masculine waters, which is a level of Mad, which comes from the 8th constellation, the 8th hair of the 13 attributes of mercy, which is called the Mazel, the Neitzer Chesed. And this is what the Malachim and the Jewish people say Kadesh, because why? They're trying to ascend, they're trying to bring up a man to draw down the Mad. Just for example, that somebody wants to bring a gift before a king, the main thing is to bring something novel, something like a parrot, that through that which you bring this to the king, and it's a novel thing, you arouse and you draw down the heart of kings, which are beyond understanding that it should actually turn to this request of this regular person. And this is the idea that we ascend, we lift up this man of the different refinements of the 288 sparks, that we should nullify the ego, nullify self, and that's a novelty, that this novelty brings about that we could draw down the mad, the sustenance, and the masculine waters from above. And therefore, the main halas man, this main ascension of the feminine waters, depends on the Sista Lasata of the neshamas that are of the Jewish people that are in a body. That's where it says in the Zohar, in Balak, that being that the Jewish people came, they took away the action, the ability of doing from the Malachim. Why? Because even the Malachim are also connected and they have the ability to have nullification of self, because in Malach also an angel has a body, and that's why it says by them oisei dvaroi, that oisei means they do, means that they fix. And that is through the nullification of self when they say Kaddish and when they say Baruch, but because their body is a spiritual body. And also they have no Yetzirah. Therefore, the nullification of man is much lower than because the body and the Nefesh Bahamas, they actually conceal ungodliness. And so that draws an even greater light. It's a greater novelty, as we mentioned before, the idea of the novelty as a gift of the king. And that is why they took the Asiyah from the angels. And it's not that there's no level of Asiyah and Tikkun, there's no more fixing at all from the angels. Because it still says the Oisei Dvarei, that they do his work, his word. Because they still say Kaddish and Baruch even now. But the idea is only that the action, the doing, the making, and the drawing down of the Malachim is nullified in comparison to the action and the doing and the drawing down of the Jewish people, and like the nullification and how the speech is fused and nullified within thought, or the emotions within intellect, meaning not that they don't exist, but they're nullified like a candle before a big fire. And therefore, the Malachim don't say Kaddish until the Jewish people say it first, as explains in Zohar. And even so, the Malachim also say Kaddish, which this is their service of Hashem. And look where it says this about the and so this ascension of man, this raising of the feminine waters and the Jewish people's soul of the Neshamas Yisrael is through what? Iskafin hapcha, through transforming and through breaking from darkness to light and from bitterness to sweetness, through breaking the desires of the body through the actions of physical mitzvahs. And that's what it says in the pasuk that after Shinecha, Ke'eder Harachelim, he finishes off Keplach Harimoin, that it's like a pomegranate, which we know about a pomegranate says the Jewish people are filled with mitzvahs like a pomegranate, that in other words, right when he's born, he already fulfills a mitzvah, the first one when he's not circumcised to the 8th day, and you take from him the blood of the bris, milah, which that is a pain of the body, which is likafia, to actually conquer it or to break it or to bend it. And then when he gets a little bit older, he goes to school and they teach him Torah, goes to cheder, and they teach him Torah, and they educate him in mitzvahs. And when he doesn't want to do it, doesn't want to learn, they hit him with a strap, like it says in Hilchos Talmud Torah, which comes from all this. That what you're doing is you're transforming the darkness to light, and you're breaking the sitra achra, the evil. And the same thing in all mitzvahs. All of them is what the pain of the body, to nullify it, and nullify and to weaken the Yetzer Hara, and to force it against its will to fulfill the positive commandments and the negative commandments, and those of the Rabbanan, and also to make himself holy from things that are permissible to him, that not even to do those, which through that he refines all these refinements of the lower worlds of Bria, Tzira, and Asiya, and he makes from them you make an ascension of the feminine waters to above, to draw down from this masculine waters, which is from the level of the Mazalei Savarachampen, as we said before. And this all is the level of the ascension of the man, that's on the external ascension, which that is from the action of mitzvahs and the actual fulfillment of them, and the painting of the body, and the weakening of the Yetzer Hara in action. And as we said before, that even a child, you could already have these levels within him, and that's the mitzvah of Milah. But there's a second level, which that is the ascension of the man, which is in the inner levels, which that is that one should become excited, and one should burn in flames of fire of love to Hashem. And the same thing also in fear and awe of God, which that's the idea of the halas man, the raising of the feminine waters in a pnimius, in an inner way. And the same thing also, we have it with the ascension of the man of the malachim, that they say Kadesh, that they also burn in a love and a great flame of fire, and their souls go out to Hashem. And that's what's between the ascension of the man that happens through davening to the ascension of the man that happens through mitzvahs. Both of them are halas man from the birurim, and from the refinements of the things of biyah, as we said in Priyatz Chaim Shar Aleph in Perek Zayin, as we said, it's impossible to refine these sparks from on their own, if not through someone. In other words, someone who refines it, and that is through davening and mitzvahs. And all the davening mitzvahs of people that are down here, the lower world, there becomes this refinement. So he says, so tefillah, the main thing is, so we see two things, tefillah and mitzvahs. So tefillah, the main thing is the inner man, which that is the fulfillment of mitzvahs, of ava, and of love of God, and fear of God, and nullification, and therefore it's called the work of the heart, to give over your soul and your desire to Hashem, as it says in the Maimer and Parshas Achrei, Kibiyam Hazeh Yechaper. And the mitzvahs, on the other hand, they are the halas man of chitzonius, the external level of man. As it says in Eitz Chaim, Shapnimis v'chitzonius, in the third drush, and this is what he says, Vuhu, Shekol b'chinas ma'aseh b'chitzonius, that all the levels of action are in the external levels, and every level of speech and davening is in the inner levels. And look what he says in Parshas Chayesara, and the Masal Ein Beitz Chaim. So in truth, there is a advantage to the ascension of the man, the external one, that is not found in the inner halas man. And there's also an advantage in the inner halas man that you don't find in the external halas man. And what is the advantage of the halas man, the external one? It's action, which means that because it's action, it's able to draw down the masculine waters from a much higher level, even higher. In other words, it's able to draw it down from the level of the makifim, of the surrounding and ethereal lights. Why? Because the external levels, they are the ones that their source is in the makifim. That means that they're able to draw down the sustenance of the masculine waters from these constellations of Arich, which are the levels of Makifim. On the other hand, the ascension of the man, of the inner man, could only draw down a mayim tchurin, of a masculine water, from inner light. In other words, which is much lower in level from the Makifim light. Now, on the other hand, the advantage that we find in the ascension of the man of the inner level is because the mad gets drawn down from a more inner place, and through that it's able to enclose itself within the vessel and get revealed in a revealed way. On the other hand, when you have a ascension of the man, of the, like we said, the external one, even though that the mad is coming from a much higher place, from the level of makifim, yet it doesn't get revealed in a revealed way in the vessel, only it stays above it, and it says it's removed from it. As it says, Kitzina Ratzin Tatrenu, that the desire is like a crown, and it's like Kitzina also, that it shields on a person. The same way that the supernal desire that gets drawn down through the mitzvahs, it crowns the person in a way of light that surrounds you, as it says also, which that pasuk refers to, that Hashem is a shelter for us. He surrounds us. And the explanation of this is because the halos man, the pnimius, in other words, the internal halos man, which is through davening, which a person arouses himself in love and fear in his soul, and through that he arouses a arousal from above, from the level of the supernal love and fear of Atzilus, to get revealed in his soul, that he comes, that it falls upon him from above, a fear of God and a great love, as you see in the Ha'ar of Tikkun Chatzah. So we see at this mad, it gets revealed within your soul in a revealed way. On the other hand, that which the light comes, what happens through the action of mitzvahs, it doesn't shine only in a revealed way. Rather, it's like, so to speak, ethereal. It's still surrounding on the soul, and it's not in the inner parts of the soul. And we can say this also, it says in the Likkutei Torah at the end, that tefillah is a drawing down the light of Ein Sof Baruch Hu into biyah, to change the creations from where they are. In other words, the davening should affect that those who are sick get healed, and then the rain falls from heaven, and it gives birth, and it grows. And on the other hand, Torah mitzvahs, there's no change in the actual parchment of the tefillin. It stays the same. So it doesn't really affect the physical in the way that davening does. And so Torah mitzvahs are also these two levels of inner and external levels. And you could look in the pasuk with Rabbi called Dvarim in the explanation on the pasuk Elam Masay. Ois Gimel. He says, now we could come to what it says in the Zohar, that the Jewish people are malachim, they holy Hashem, above and below, all like one. Because in general, the ascension of the feminine waters of the Jewish people's soul, as they are down here in this world and clothed in a body, that's called, as we said, the halos man of the chitzonius, of the external man, in comparison to the ascension of the man of the malachim, which are not in a physical body, and therefore they have this flame of love of Hashem, and a flame of fire in their inner beings. And the same thing with fear, that they tremble from the fear of the throne, of God's throne. And therefore, the malachim, their ascension of their man is called a halos man de primius, an inner ascension. And that's the difference between the holiness of the Jewish people, that they are mekadosh, they make holy down here, and then the ascension of the man of the holiness of the angels, which are a level higher. But then there's a third level in the halos man, and that is halos man of the makifim itself, of the surrounding lights themselves, which that is the neshamas as they are above, without being yet enclosed within a body. And this is the halos man of makifim itself. Because the neshama, as it is above, has no body and it has no vessel that it limits it at all. On the other hand, the angels, they have bodies, only that they are spiritual. They're made from fire and wind. And it says all this in the Maimer Mizmasher Chanukas Habayis. And therefore, the ascension of man, of the neshamas that are without bodies, are called the halos man of the makifim, in comparison to the halos man of the malachim. But we already explained before that the main Asustul and the main ascension of the man from the neshamas of the Jewish people is from the souls of the Jewish people that are specifically in a body. And therefore you have to say that even this halos man, which is the makif halos man, is also connected down here, and it's affected and it's made down here as a neshama is within a body. As explained in a different place about Ro'ei Reach B'ni Gabi Reach Boigdav, which Boigdav, as those who rebel, and it was level of tshuva, which that is the ascension of man, which is the level of makif that happens down here as well when we do tshuva. And the same way as in every person, you have to have all your days in tshuva, and that's the idea of b'chol moedecha, which is beyond any limit of any vessel, and that is the level of makif. But this, really, in truth, is a level of a revelation of the neshama that's higher really than the neshama is in the body, and it's a level of makif over the soul as it is in the body. As explained in other places, that the level of b'chol moedecha is the main avoida of the neshama, which is the level of makif. And the meaning of this is that the makif shines in the level of the neshama as it is in the body, to be able to affect the ability to have b'chol moedecha, all your might and all your being. And that's explained also in the Ma'amar Suas Reish, the Golgolosim, and Pashas Bamidbar, and the Maskeh Kiseitz Hamshech, that you to draw down the revelation of godliness from the level of the mazel, which is the neshama, as it's higher than the body. So this is through the levels of tshuva. And look also what it says about the idea of the Chassidim Rishonim, and the Maaseh Yaakov Moshe about the neshama the extra neshama that gets revealed on Shabbos. And so the levels of b'chol levavcha and b'chol nafshecha, with all your heart and with all your soul, this is the inner man. Yeah? But the level of the meaning of b'chol nafshecha is also the garments of the soul, your thought, speech, and action, which the action is the external halas man. So it comes out that b'chol levavcha, b'chol nafshecha, and b'chol meidecha are the three levels of this halas man that we said before, of the external, the inner, and the makif. And so these three levels are also the three levels of food, clothing, and house. It's explained in other places because food is an inner light, and garment is the action of mitzvahs, which is the halas man of chitzonius, and the house is level of b'chol meidecha, as it says in Shemaim Kissi. So it comes out that there's three levels in this halas man. That means there's a makifim, there's a pnimim, and there's this chitzonius. And generally, these are the three worlds of bria tzir nasiya, because the aliyah of yotzer are forming light, and the level of creating darkness is that yitzira is called light, which is an inner light, and bria is called darkness. In other words, the level of makif, which is not grasped in yitzira. And therefore, in the same way it is in the order of the evolved world, that the surrounding light gets drawn, and then afterwards there comes a light from it in an inner light, but then the essential light stays in a level of makif. And then afterwards, from the pnimi, there becomes another makif down here into this lower world, that the makif light that's down here is considered like an external level in comparison to the inner light that's above it. And that's the level of Asiyah. Yet, the level of Asiyah, he said, its sources are much higher. As we said, at the external level, its source is from the inner light. As it says, its source is even higher than the inner light. As it says in the pasuk of Yivush Malchus, how the creation of the physical Asiyah is specifically from Seiv Klam in itself. It's explained in Zohar, that Asiyah, Iyu La'ela, Asiyah is higher, etc. And these are the three flocks that Yaakov sent, a gift to Esav, his brother, which is the ascension of the man to the world of Toyu, which from there all the vessels have fallen and broken, and from there came Esav. And so these three worlds of Bria Tzir and Asiyah, they have been created from the breaking of these vessels of Toyu. And therefore, he brought a man, an ascension of the feminine waters of these three flocks, which are these three levels of Makifim, Pnimim, and Chitzonius, to Esav. And it's called each one a flock of its own, because each one is a level that's totally different and separated from the other. Just like the difference between Neshamas that are in bodies to Malachim, and then the difference between the level of angels, which are in spiritual bodies, to the level of Neshamas that have no body at all. And that's why it says he sent Eder Levada, each flock by its own. And he commanded the first one, then he commanded the second one, then also the third one. In other words, he separated them into three levels, which are really different one from the other. And even though in a more detailed way, in every level of the three levels, you have in it many thousands and tens of thousands of levels, etc., different one from the other. Yet, they're all within one realm, one type. And just as like the halas man of the chitzonius, in other words, of Asiyah, is called generally the halas man of Asiyah, and everything in it is included there. And that's like the example of one flock, that even though in a flock you have many different levels, there's those who are mainly the avodav and staka, and giving charity, and doing kindness. And there's those who their main work is in involvement of Torah. And there's those who their main avodah is in davening. And there are those in fasting and such things. Yet, when you combine them all, in general, they're one being. And this is like the example of one flock has in it many, many differences in the sheep. One, it looks and its height and its way, how good it is one way, and the other one is this. Yet it's all one flock. And the halas man of the inner level is another type, another sug, another species, another type of grouping of in this case with a different animal, but a different type of sheep. And therefore it's called an Eder b'fnei atzma, its own flock. And Yaakov ascended, he brought up a man from all these three levels so that he'd be able to draw down from its source and the and its root in the world of Tayu, and to bring and therefore refine Esav. So he continues it on this. It says, "Ke'eder harachelim sha'olam in arachza," that like the flock of goats, of sheep that have come up from the wash, because this ascension of this feminine water has to have a bleaching, a whitening, and a washing, as we know, libun hilchasa, the whitening of the halacha. But the basic idea is that because it's berooted from the physical world, and the physical world is a place of physicality and a place of self, etc., which are things that need to be cleaned off. And that means that all the laws, which are the 6 orders of the Mishnah, They need a washing and a whitening, and the same thing also in the action of mitzvahs. And how does this all happen? Specifically through Moshe Rabbeinu. So that is that by Moshe it says that he was drawn from the water, which is the water, the sea of Chachma, the supernal Chachma. And all the Torah is only like one pitcher from the water, from the sea, as it says that Rivka filled up Kada, her pitcher, her jug. And this is also called, this level of water is also called from the other side of the river, higher than the level of river, which river is from the term of something that's being drawn down, that's coming through the ways of evolvement of emanation to emanator to emanation. Light to light, in other words, cause and effect, which is one within the realm of the other. As it says that the river goes out from Eden, and there it splits up. But what's on the other side of the river? That is higher than the evolved world, and from there it gets drawn down the masculine waters that washes and whitens and bleaches the man, the feminine waters. And look about this in the pasuk Eile Shmois, in the idea of Libun Hilchasa, and in the Maimer Eisur Legefen, in the idea of that he washes with wine his garments. Also in the Maschil, and look also in the meaning of Minamayim Mishisu and the Maim Velamase, and there it's explained that it says V'gam Doloi Dolo Lanu. It says by Moshe that he drew water for the daughters of Yisrael, which there he translates Doloi Dolo Lanu, that he draws down the level of nullification of the supernal unity in the Jewish souls, which this is like the nullification of one drop of the sea, as we said, within all the seas. And that's the idea of washing and the cleaning of all the garments through the nullification of Yichud Ilah, which that nullification washes all the things that were separate, so to speak, down here in this world. And that is why it's compared to a flock of sheep that came up specifically from the wash, that these garments that happen from Torah mitzvahs, they are compared to the wool of sheep, as it says of Vushek Etlav Chiver, or Nesen Shalak Atzamer, or it's a Saresh Kemer, with all these verses and Pasukim are speaking about the idea of wool and the involvement and how is the Torah mitzvahs. So then, through this, which they come up from this wash, then these three flocks, they all become like one flock. And that's why it says, Shinecha ke'eder harachelim, like one flock of sheep. In other words, like one flock, that when they are in Bria, Tzir, and Asiya, then there are three different flocks that they divide into three different levels, as we mentioned before. But when they ascend from the wash, then they're called one Eder, one flock. Which why? Because when they receive the Maim Tchurim, the masculine waters from these supernal waters of above, which are higher than the evolved worlds, which there, it's higher than any division. In other words, a thing that unites and equalizes big and small, which that is called the supernal Kaddish without a Vav, which is higher than the level of Kaddish with a Vav, that's drawn down, so to speak, in the level of a hair, which, as we said, the Vav shows on how he's drawn down, which is a drawing down of his holiness, that he should be Mamalik Kolaman or Seiv Kolaman, which is only a ray, etc. On the other hand, Kaddish without a Vav is something beyond the worlds in general, and that's higher, much higher than the level of Mamala, and also the level of Seiv, as we said before, as explained in the Maimer, Sanurena. And this is what's called a rachza, that it gets washed, because here it gets washed every sin and every scar. Because there, the scars do not, they're doing something wrong, the pgam does not actually affect it. And that is what it says, I'll sprinkle upon you pure waters and you'll become pure, etc. So now, the word Kaddish is said 3 times, which also is the hamshacha to the 3 worlds of Bria, Tzir, and Asiya. On the other hand, Kaddish without a Vav, it only says it 1 time, and not 3 times. Why? Because it's higher than the divisions of divided worlds, etc. And therefore, also the angels and the neshamas, when they come up from this wash, that they also ascend to receive this supernal waters on the other side of the river, which is the level of the supernal Kaddish, then they all become all one and infused one with the other, with a true infusion, fusion of one with the other, and they become one flock. And that's what it means, kulam asimais, they're all equal, they all become equal and the same, like twins that get born at one time itself. And the same way these 3 flocks, when they ascend to wash in these supernal waters, the level of Kaddish, the supernal Kaddish, they become masimais, they become equal, like twins, with a true fusion, without any division at all, and therefore it's called the flock of sheep, which are all one in one flock. And that's what it says in Zohar, that they become holy, they be holy all as one. And that is that this ascension of the Maim Nukvin, these feminine waters that ascend, of the words Kaddish, of the Malachim, and of the Jewish people down here, even though down here they're divided into different levels of division, each flock by itself, because this ascension of the Maim Nukvin, of Asiya, is not similar to the Maim Nukvin that ascends from Yetzirah, etc., which this is the Chitzonius level, and this is the inner level, as we said before. Yet, this division is only because of the ascension of the feminine waters, and therefore they say 3 times Kaddish in connection to these different types, 3 different types of ascension of feminine waters. But once they ascend from the wash, from the Rachza, which that is where they receive already this masculine water, which is from the level of Kodesh HaElyon, from the supernal holiness, which is higher than the levels of division, then they all become like one flock and equal. And therefore, they all are wholly like one. And that's what it says in the Idra, on the verse, that they that this they wash in the milk, which is in the whiteness of above, which is a level of Atik Yomin of above, and that's the idea, as explained before, in the Pasuk Eile Mishpatim, that from the level of Yosher, which is the direct light, which that's where it's possible to have divisions of head and feet. On the other hand, in the circular levels of Seiv Kalam, and those that surround, which have no above and below, and there is with the level of the drawing from Moshe Rabbeinu of the supernal of supernal knowledge is there is no divisions at all. And therefore, it's possible for the Neshama of Moshe to draw down Das, even to the levels of Bria Tzir Nasiya, to the level of animals, in other words, animal souls, which we're calling the souls of Jews that are down here in this world, when you'll contemplate and in depth think in his thought and the greatness of Hashem. So through Moshe, you're able to draw down a knowledge and a connection with the Eibishter. Why? Because you're able to draw down from the level of Seiv Kolamin, which there's no concept of above and below, of head and foot, and man and animal. Hashem saves equally because they're all equal. And so this idea that in Biyah they get divided into three flocks. This is also from the level of Yosher, from the level of the direct light, which has in it a head and a body and a foot. In other words, Chabad, which is Chacham Abin Das, and Chagas, which is Chesed Gvur and Tiferes, and He, which is Netzach Yehoid and Yesod, which Chabad, they get revealed in the level of Bria. And there is this level of the angels that are called Srafim, and the Chagas is in the level of Yitzira. And there you have the level of the Chayas, the angels that are called Chayas, and the level of Netzach Yesod, they're in the world of Asiya, and there you have the angels that are called Ifanim. But through the drawing down of the surrounding lights of Seiv Kolam, which have no above and below, then even a man and an animal are equal in their height, and for sure the levels of Bria Tzir and Asiya themselves are all equal. And therefore, through that which they go up from this wash, which is a drawing down of Moshe, that he's drawn down, that he said, from the water, therefore they're now called one flock and not 3 anymore. In the same way, it's also explained on the verse, in the idea of the 7th, that it says that it's for you and for your slave and for your animal and for the animals that are in the field, that the Eibishter, so to speak, makes dependent the man in an animal, that as long as this is with regard to Shemitah, that as long as the animal eats in the field, so too a man can't eat in the field. And that is because that in the year of Shvius, there's an ascension of the worlds to the level of this Makif and surrounding light, where man and animal are equally saved. As we said before, in the Shah Yichud, and from the Shah Yichudim at the end, and in the Shah Yichudim towards the end, he writes that the going up, Sha'ala min arachza, is Rashi Tevis Moshe. So min is mem, and then the last word, the first word is shin is Sha'alu, and the last one harachza is Rashi Tevis Moshe. In other words, Moshe is the one who draws down this water to clean and to unite all these 3 levels. And look what it says in the beer of the verse Maim Rabbim, in the idea of Rivka Shalish Bakar, which is like not a carriage, but like a group of animals that are connected together of 3 cows, which is a level of Das Alyan that draws down from the midas of Keser. So that draw down the midas from the Keser, and there's no divisions again, and it's the same type of idea. Okay, and then we could also explain the meaning of that idea that they receive from the supernal Kodesh, that this is similar to the idea of the ascension of the worlds on the day of Shabbos, which are 3 worlds of Bria, Tzir, and Asiya. They go up into the world of Atzilus. As it says in Mishach Sidim, that with regard to Mincha of Shabbos, and so the Malchus of Atzilus, which is the source of Bria, Tzir, and Asiya, goes up into the place of Chachma of Abba itself. And this is why they receive from the level of Kodesh itself. And therefore, they are like one flock at that time, because in Atzilus, he and his vessels and the light are all one. And look what it says in Ramaz and Parsha Shlach, that in Atzilus, there's an unbelievable unity. And look similar to what it says about Nesher Yar, that in Biyah, there's division of levels. In Bria Tzir Nasiyah, there's a face of the lion, there's a face which is to the right, and the face of the ox, which is to the left. And the other in Atzilus, it's all one. Therefore, Matan Torah, which they saw, that which is usually heard, because then there was a revelation of godliness without any divisions. And therefore, there was no separation, heaven forbid, between seeing and hearing. And that's the meaning of Shinacha, which generally we said is your teeth are white. And it says in Pardes, in the level of in the gate of letters, that the letter of Shin is from the word Shinacha Ke'eder, that your shin is like a flock. So now we're going to change the meaning Shinacha, instead of being teeth, which we'll get back to that in a second. He's just simply saying Shinacha, your shins. So in Tikkun Zayar, Tikkun Aleph, it says that shin, it is the one that includes within 3 flocks of sheep. Tlas Avohan. And therefore it says V'chosiach, that all the Siyach Hasada generally can mean 2 things. We'll see in a minute the words, but also it means the hay of the field, the straw of the field. And this is what we say in Kedusha 3 times. We say Kinoyam Siyach, that the word Siyach is the same word here, that is, and as I said, that Siyach, what does the mean? Is Oisius Chai Shin. There's a Shin and Chai, which is that the Shin, it has in it 3 vavs. It has 3, that's the way the Shin is designed, which is the 3 vavs, which are the 3 times Kaddish with a vav. Because Kaddish, as we said, is Kaddish with a vav. And that is the 3 levels of Kaddish of these 3 flocks of sheep, as we said. And this is the praise that we say, Shinacha, that your teeth, but here it means that your shins. That means that the 3 levels that are ascending through the man of the Jewish souls, of the external level, the inner level, and then the surrounding levels, which they are the 3 flocks of sheep, which are all included in the level of Shin, they are totally complete. And also, and therefore, Shinacha Ke'eder Harachelim, that they become, they are like this flock of sheep, like the singular flock of sheep, that's all one, and because they come and they've been washed, they've become one flock instead of the original 3 that's hinted to in the Shin. And also he says Shinacha could also be taken literally, as it says in other places on it says how your teeth are whitened from milk, which that is, there is explained to be very scrupulous in your actions and to refine them, like the teeth that they grind food and make them refined. And that's the idea of the ascension of the feminine waters from their actions, which that is the beginning and the foundation for everything we're doing. And as we said before in the Ha'ara of the Altar and the Tzemach Tzedek, that even the level of B'chol Meidecha is happening through what we do here on this world. It's all founded in what our actions in here. And even though who doesn't have the intellect to reach the higher levels, yet this should be his avodah and the ascension and the elevating of the man through action, as explained in the Maimer Hashem L'Keim Telechu, in the meaning of Avoisid Bakun. And through that you could become Ke'eder Harachelim, like the flock of sheep that goes up from the wash, which that is a drawing down of this masculine water from the level of the supernal holiness, and it becomes one flock. Okay, another explanation is in this meaning of the word Shinacha Ke'eder, that through that they ascend from this wash, then the Shin, which is from a much higher level, as it says in Parshas Emor, in the Ma'amar of Kain Eisam Alechem Abikurim, that there's the idea of Shin of the Ksavim. So generally, keves, a sheep, is keves, which are the bays before the Shin or Sin. And here, all of a sudden in the pasuk it says that the Ksavim, which the Sin, is before the bays, which this is the idea of the supernal midas that are higher than wisdom, and they get drawn down from the supernal knowledge. Now, the words, this idea that you go up from the wash, which happens through Moshe, who is the faithful shepherd, who is the supernal knowledge. Through that as it says in Ayimahemna Pashas Mishpatim, that the Shin of Moshe, that is the Kedusha L'Chayish Aleshu, that the holiness becomes tripled. In other words, that Moshe allows that we can get these higher level of midas of this Shin, which comes before the bays, even higher than the beginning of the creation of the world, probably. And look at the Quran Zayar there, that there's a Shin Ilah and Shin Tatar. There's a higher Shin and a lower Shin. And in Kisei Melech there, in the Likkutei Torah, Parshas Neach, and in Zayar, he said, Gabe Allah, Gabe Allah's ois shin, the ascension of the level of shin. A letter of shin. And looking at Zerkir, Avram, that the shin, it hints to the levels of Keser Chachma Bina. And also hints to Chachat Said Gvurti Feres, and also hints to Netzach Chayid Yisayid. And he brings from the Rai Mehem the Pashas Pinchas, that he says that the Shechina is called Shabbos. And this is from the side of the three levels, the three supernal levels, which they are the Shin. And these three crowns are Keser Chachma and Bina. And this is the fourth daughter, the Bas Revioloin, which that is that on Shabbos, this level of Bas, it ascends to this level of the Shin, which is these higher three supernal Midas, which just happens through Moshe, and this is Shinecha, that your Shin goes up from the wash, as we said before. And so this happens again through Moshe and the level of Das Alyan, that we're able to have this immense emotions of and connection with Hashem through with the Eibishter through this revelation that we get from Moshe Rabbeinu. And we'll finish the Maimer next week.